Little girl pointed at the bikers. They hit my mom. The whole town heard the engines roar. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Highway 29 as it cut through the small town of Millbrook, Virginia. The two-lane road was a lifeline connecting the rural community to the larger cities beyond, but it was also notorious for accidents. Sarah Mitchell knew this road well, too well. At 32, she had driven it countless times, always careful, always vigilant, especially now with her 6-year-old daughter, Emma, buckled safely in the back seat. "Mommy, can we get ice cream after we pick up groceries?" Emma's voice was bright with hope, her small hands clutching the worn, stuffed rabbit she took everywhere. Sarah glanced in the rear-view mirror, meeting her daughter's wide brown eyes. "We'll see, sweetheart. If you're good at the store and help Mommy, maybe we can stop at Dairy Dream on the way home." Emma's face lit up with a smile that made Sarah's heart swell. These moments, these simple, everyday moments, were everything to her. Since the divorce 2 years ago, it had been just the two of them against the world. Sarah worked double shifts as a nurse at Millbrook Community Hospital to make ends meet, and every penny counted. But she always tried to find small ways to make Emma happy. The traffic light ahead turned yellow. Sarah eased off the gas, preparing to stop. The intersection of Highway 29 and Oak Street was busy this time of day, with people heading home from work or running errands before dinner. She watched as the light turned red, and she brought her aging Toyota Camry to a complete stop. That's when she saw them in her side mirror. A black pickup truck was approaching from behind. Fast. Too fast. Sarah's nursing instincts, honed from years of emergency situations, kicked in immediately. Time seemed to slow as she watched the truck barreling toward them, showing no signs of slowing down. "Hold on, Emma!" Sarah screamed. The impact was devastating. The pickup truck slammed into the back of their car with such force that Sarah's head snapped backward, then forward. The sound of crunching metal and shattering glass filled her ears. The airbag deployed, hitting her face with brutal force. Pain exploded through her neck and back. Through the chaos, she heard Emma screaming in the back seat. When the car finally stopped moving, having been pushed nearly 50 feet through the intersection, Sarah's vision was blurred. Blood dripped from a cut above her eyebrow. Her hands shook as she tried to unbuckle her seatbelt, desperate to reach Emma. "Emma, baby, are you okay?" Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Mummy, Mummy!" Emma was crying, terrified but miraculously appeared unharmed in her booster seat, protected by the rear position and her seatbelt. Sarah tried to turn around, but searing pain shot through her spine. She couldn't move properly. Panic began to set in, not for herself, but for Emma. She needed to get her daughter out of the car, needed to make sure she was truly safe. Through her shattered driver's side window, Sarah saw people running toward them. She heard shouting, the sound of someone calling 911. But she also heard something else, something that sent a chill down her already aching spine. Car doors slamming, footsteps running away, an engine starting. The black pickup truck was leaving the scene. Sarah managed to turn her head just enough to see through her cracked side mirror. 2 young men, probably in their early 20s, were jumping back into the damaged pickup truck. Even through her pain and shock, she could see their faces clearly. One had a distinctive eagle tattoo on his neck. The other wore a red baseball cap backwards. The driver looked directly at her for a split second, their eyes meeting, and she saw something that made her blood run cold. Not remorse, but cold calculation. Then they were gone. Tires squealing as they fled down Highway 29, weaving recklessly through traffic. "Someone stop them!" a woman's voice shouted from somewhere nearby. "They're leaving! Someone get their license plate!" But it was too late. The truck disappeared around a bend, leaving behind only skid marks and destruction. Sarah's vision began to fade. The pain was overwhelming. She could hear Emma still crying, calling for her, but she couldn't respond. Her last conscious thought before everything went black was a prayer. "Please, God, let someone take care of Emma." The sound of motorcycle engines was what brought Sarah partially back to consciousness. At first it was distant, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the ground. Then it grew louder, closer. Through her half-closed eyes, Sarah saw a crowd gathering around her car. Someone had opened her door and was talking to her, checking her pulse. A blanket had been placed over her, but she couldn't focus on any of that. All she could hear were those engines. Then they stopped. Jesus Christ, what happened here? A deep, gravelly voice cut through the chaos. "Hit and run," someone from the crowd answered. "Black pickup truck, left that woman and her kid and just took off. Happened maybe 5 minutes ago." Sarah felt strong but gentle hands touching her shoulder. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Help is on the way." She managed to open her eyes fully. The face looking down at her was weathered and bearded, belonging to a man probably in his 50s. He wore a leather vest over a denim shirt, and patches covered the vest. Motorcycle club insignia. Behind him she could see more bikers, at least a dozen of them, their motorcycles parked haphazardly across the intersection. "Emma," Sarah managed to whisper. "My daughter." "She's okay," the biker said firmly. "My friend Rachel is with her right now. She's scared, but she's not hurt. You did good, Mama. That car seat saved her life." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "They hit us. They ran." "I know. We're going to handle it." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet, comforting but promising action. What did the truck look like? Black, pickup, 2 men, one had an eagle tattoo on his neck. Each word cost her tremendous effort. The biker's jaw clenched. He turned to his companions. "You hear that? Black pickup, eagle tattoo on the driver's neck. Can't be that many around here." Another biker, this one younger with a shaved head, stepped forward. "Tommy Peterson. Has to be. That punk has an eagle right there," he pointed to his own neck. "Drives his daddy's black Dodge Ram. Lives over on Copper Mill Road." "You sure?" the older biker asked. 100%. Been in trouble before. DUIs, street racing. His old man keeps bailing him out." The sound of sirens finally reached them. An ambulance and 2 police cars were approaching fast. The bearded biker leaned down closer to Sarah. "Ma'am, my name is Jack Reeves. I'm president of the Iron Brotherhood MC here in Millbrook. I promise you, I swear to you on my life, we're going to find who did this, and they're going to face justice. You understand me?" Sarah wanted to respond, wanted to thank him, but darkness was pulling at her again. The last thing she heard before passing out completely was Jack's voice, strong and unwavering. "Get Tommy Peterson's address. Now." Emma sat in the back of the ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, despite the warm Virginia evening. A female paramedic named Lisa was checking her over, talking to her in soothing tones, but Emma's eyes were locked on the woman kneeling in front of her. Her name was Rachel, and she wore a leather jacket with wings embroidered on the back. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her eyes were kind. The kind that Emma's mum had. The kind that made you feel safe. "Your mama is very brave," Rachel was saying softly. "She protected you so well. The doctors are going to take good care of her." "I want to go with her," Emma whispered, clutching her stuffed rabbit tighter. "I know, sweetie, and you will. But right now, the ambulance needs to take her to the hospital fast, and they need room to help her. Is there someone we can call? Your daddy? A grandma or grandpa?" Emma shook her head. "Daddy lives far away, in California. Mommy says he's busy." Rachel's expression tightened, but she kept her voice gentle. "What about friends or family?" "Aunt Kelly, she lives in Charlottesville. Mommy has her number in her phone." "Okay, good. We'll call her." Rachel looked up at the paramedic. "Lisa, is the mom's phone in the car?" "I'll check," Lisa said, heading toward the wrecked Camry. Emma watched as they loaded her mother into the ambulance. Sarah was on a stretcher, her neck in a brace, an oxygen mask over her face. She looked so small, so fragile. Emma had never seen her mother look like that before. Her mom was always strong, always taking care of everything. "Is Mommy going to die?" The question came out small and scared. Rachel took Emma's hands in hers. "No, honey. Your mama is hurt, but the doctors at the hospital are really good. They're going to help her get better. Those men hurt her." Emma's voice changed, becoming harder. "Those men in the truck. They hit us, and then they drove away." "I saw them." Rachel's eyes sharpened. "You saw them? The men in the truck?" Emma nodded. "Two men. One was driving. He had a picture on his neck, like a bird. An eagle? Maybe. It had wings." Jack Reeves appeared at Rachel's side. He crouched down to Emma's level, his large frame somehow making her feel protected rather than intimidated. "Emma, my name is Jack. I'm a friend of Rachel's. We're going to make sure you're safe, and we're going to make sure those men who hurt your mama face consequences for what they did. Okay?" Emma looked at him with eyes far too serious for a 6-year-old. "Are you going to hurt them?" Jack exchanged a glance with Rachel before answering carefully. "We're going to make sure the police catch them and that they go to jail where they belong. That's what justice means." "Good." Emma's small voice held a weight that surprised them both. "Because they shouldn't have run away. That's what bad people do." The ambulance doors closed and the vehicle pulled away, sirens wailing. Emma watched it disappear down Highway 29, her small hand pressed against the glass of the police car they'd placed her in for safety. Officer Davidson, a veteran cop who'd seen his share of accidents, came over to speak with Jack and Rachel. "We've got an APB out for the truck. Black Dodge Ram. Recent damage to the front end. If they're still in the county, we'll find them. We've got a name," Jack said quietly, making sure Emma couldn't hear. "Tommy Peterson. Lives on Copper Mill Road. One of my guys recognized the description. Kid's got a reputation." Officer Davidson's expression darkened. "Tommy Peterson, yeah, I know him. Multiple offenses, Daddy's money keeps him out of real trouble. If it's him..." He shook his head. "I'll send units to his house right now." "We're coming too," Jack said. It wasn't a request. "Jack, you know I can't have vigilante justice." "We're not talking vigilante. We're talking about making sure he doesn't run. You know his father will lawyer him up and have him out of state by morning if we're not careful. We'll stay back, let you do your job, but we're going to be there." Davidson studied Jack's face for a long moment. The two men had known each other for years, had even been friends in high school before their paths diverged, one toward law enforcement, one toward the Brotherhood of the Road. But they shared something important, a sense of justice and a deep love for their small town. "Stay back," Davidson finally said. "I mean it, Jack. This has to be by the book." "Understood." As the police officer walked away, Rachel touched Jack's arm. "What about the girl?" They both looked at Emma, still sitting in the police car, clutching her rabbit, staring at nothing. "We'll make sure she's taken care of," Jack said. "Lisa found the mom's phone. We'll call her aunt. Until then, she doesn't leave our sight." Rachel nodded. "I'll stay with her." "Good." Jack turned to the rest of the Iron Brotherhood members who had gathered. There were 15 of them now, having called in reinforcements from nearby chapters. They stood in a semicircle, their leather vests bearing the distinctive patch of an iron cross, surrounded by wings. "Brothers," Jack's voice carried authority that demanded attention. "Sister," he nodded to Rachel, "we all saw what happened here today. A mother and child were hit by cowards who ran. This is our town. These are our people. We protect our own." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. "The police are going to handle this the right way, the legal way. We're going to support them. But we're also going to make sure this punk doesn't slip through the cracks. We're going to make sure everyone in Millbrook knows what happened here today. And we're going to make damn sure that mother and daughter know they're not alone." "What do you need from us, Prez?" asked Marcus, the club's vice president, a former Marine with arms like tree trunks. "Danny, I want you on social media. Get this story out there. Pictures of the accident, description of the truck, everything. Let's use our network. Someone saw something. Marcus, get a few brothers to the hospital. I want eyes on Sarah Mitchell until her family arrives. Rachel, you stay with the kid. The rest of you, with me. We're going to pay Mr. Tommy Peterson a visit." The rumble of motorcycle engines filled the intersection again as the Iron Brotherhood mounted up. Emma, hearing the sound, looked up from the police car. Her small face was pale, streaked with tears, but there was something else in her expression, a flicker of hope. "Who are they?" she asked Lisa, the paramedic who'd stayed with her. "Bikers, honey. The Iron Brotherhood. They help people in this town." "Are they going to help my mommy?" Lisa smiled. "I think they already are." The Peterson residence sat at the end of Copper Mill Road, a winding street that cut through one of Millbrook's more affluent neighborhoods. It was a large, colonial-style house with white columns and a perfectly manicured lawn, the kind of place that screamed old money and influence. In the circular driveway sat 3 vehicles, a silver Mercedes SUV, a vintage Corvette, and a black Dodge Ram with a distinctly damaged front end. Officer Davidson pulled his patrol car to a stop in front of the house, followed by 2 more police vehicles. Behind them, keeping a respectful but noticeable distance, came the rumble of motorcycle engines. 12 bikes parked along the street, their riders dismounting, but staying back as promised. Jack Reeves stood with his arms crossed, his eyes locked on that black pickup truck. Even from here he could see the shattered headlight, the crumpled hood, the smear of silver paint that matched Sarah Mitchell's Toyota Camry. "That's it," he said quietly to Marcus, who stood beside him. "That's the truck." "No doubt," Marcus agreed. "Look at the damage. That impact was hard." They watched as Officer Davidson approached the front door, his hand resting on his service weapon. 2 other officers flanked him, taking positions on either side of the entrance. Davidson rang the doorbell, then knocked firmly. The door opened to reveal a man in his late 50s, wearing an expensive polo shirt and khaki pants. Charles Peterson was a real estate developer who'd made millions building shopping centers and housing developments across central Virginia. His face showed surprise, then quickly morphed into controlled annoyance. "Officer Davidson, what can I do for you?" "Mr. Peterson, I need to speak with your son, Tommy. Is he home?" "Why? What's this about?" "There was an accident on Highway 29 about 45 minutes ago, a hit and run. The description of the vehicle matches your son's truck." Charles Peterson's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "That's impossible. Tommy's been home all afternoon. Then you won't mind if we speak with him to clear this up?" "Actually, I do mind, unless you have a warrant." "Dad? What's going on?" A young man appeared behind Charles Peterson. Tommy was 23, with the kind of soft features that come from a life without hardship. His hair was disheveled, and he wore basketball shorts and a tank top. But it was his neck that made Jack's fists clench. There, clearly visible, was an eagle tattoo with spread wings. "Tommy, go back inside," Charles ordered. But Officer Davidson had already seen what he needed to see. "Tommy Peterson, I need you to step outside. We have some questions about an incident on Highway 29. "I don't know what you're talking about," Tommy said, but his voice wavered. His eyes darted to the street, where he noticed for the first time the line of motorcycles and their leather-clad riders. His face went pale. "Son, don't say anything," Charles warned. "I'm calling our attorney right now. Mr. Peterson, your son can either come outside and talk to us voluntarily, or I can arrest him right now for leaving the scene of an accident with injuries. His choice. You can't arrest him without evidence. The evidence is parked in your driveway, sir. That truck has fresh damage consistent with a rear-end collision, and there's paint transfer that I can see from here. Now, we can do this easy or hard, but it's going to happen." Tommy's bravado crumbled. "Dad, I can explain." "Shut up, Tommy," Charles barked. But it was too late. Officer Davidson stepped forward. "Tommy Peterson, you're under arrest for leaving the scene of an accident with serious bodily injury. You have the right to remain silent." As Davidson read Tommy his Miranda rights and placed him in handcuffs, another figure emerged from inside the house. A second young man, also in his early 20s, wearing a red baseball cap. He took one look at the scene, the cops, his friend in handcuffs, the bikers watching from the street, and tried to back up into the house. "Hold it right there," Officer Martinez, one of the other cops, commanded. "You, red hat, step outside." "I didn't do anything." "You were in that truck, weren't you?" Davidson asked, his hand now firmly on Tommy's shoulder. The young man, later identified as Kyle Warner, looked like he might bolt. His eyes darted between the door, the police, and the bikers. Finally, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "I want a lawyer." "Smart choice," Martinez said, moving to handcuff him as well. "Kyle Warner, you're also under arrest for leaving the scene of an accident with serious bodily injury." Charles Peterson was now shouting into his phone, calling his attorney, threatening lawsuits, making proclamations about his connections to the mayor and the county sheriff. But his words fell on deaf ears. Officer Davidson and his team efficiently loaded both young men into separate patrol cars. Davidson approached Jack before leaving. "They're in custody. They'll be processed and arraigned tomorrow morning. With the damage to the truck and witness statements, this case is solid." "What about bail?" Jack asked, his voice tight. Davidson's expression was grim. "Knowing Charles Peterson's connections, he'll have them out by tomorrow afternoon. But they'll have to surrender their passports and there'll be GPS monitoring. They won't be going anywhere." "Tomorrow afternoon," Jack repeated, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. "That woman is in the hospital with possible spinal injuries, and these punks will be home tomorrow afternoon. It's how the system works, Jack. You know that. The system's broken. Maybe, but it's what we've got. Look, I know you're angry. Hell, I'm angry too, but we got them. They're going to face charges, hit and run, reckless driving, possibly vehicular assault depending on the victim's injuries. That's serious time." Jack nodded slowly, but his jaw remained clenched. "What about the mother and daughter, Sarah and Emma Mitchell?" "Sarah's at Millbrook Community Hospital. Last I heard, she's in stable condition, but they're still running tests. Possible concussion, whiplash, back injuries. The girl is physically fine, but obviously traumatized. Child Services is trying to reach family. We've got her aunt's number," Jack said. "Rachel's handling that." Davidson raised an eyebrow. "Rachel's good with kids. That's good. The girl needs someone steady right now." As the police cars pulled away, sirens silent but lights flashing, Jack turned to his brothers and sister. The Iron Brotherhood stood in a line, watching the departure with grim satisfaction. "It's a start," Marcus said, "but it's not enough." "No, it's not," Jack agreed. "Those boys will walk with a slap on the wrist. Daddy's money will see to that. But before that happens, this town is going to know what they did. Danny, where are we with social media?" Danny, the club's youngest member at 26, held up his phone. "Already viral, Prez. Posted the accident scene photos, the truck description, and now the arrest. We're up to 50,000 shares across all platforms. The local news is picking it up. ZBS and NBC affiliates are both running with it on the evening news." "Good. What about fundraising?" Rachel stepped forward. She'd been on the phone coordinating with other chapters and the club's charitable foundation. Yes, the Iron Brotherhood had a charitable foundation, something that surprised most people when they learned about it. "We've set up a GoFundMe for Sarah Mitchell's medical expenses and to help with Emma while she recovers. It's already at $12,000 and climbing. Brothers from chapters in Richmond, Roanoke, and even as far as Tennessee are spreading the word." Jack nodded, satisfaction mixing with his anger. "We take care of our own. Sarah Mitchell might not wear our patch, but she's a member of this community, and what happened to her is an attack on all of us." "What's next?" asked Tiny, a massive biker whose nickname was hilariously ironic given his 6'6" frame. "We maintain pressure. We make sure the prosecutors know the whole town is watching. We support that family, and we make damn sure Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner understand that actions have consequences." "Prez," Marcus said carefully, "we need to be smart about this. Charles Peterson has deep pockets and deeper connections. If we push too hard—" "Let him push back," Jack interrupted. "We're not doing anything illegal. We're exercising our rights as citizens, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and the right to support victims of crimes. If Charles Peterson has a problem with that, he can take it up with the Constitution." A chorus of agreement rose from the Brotherhood. "Now," Jack continued, "let's get to the hospital. I want to check on Sarah Mitchell, and we need to make sure Emma gets to see her mother." Millbrook Community Hospital was a modest facility, but it served the region well. The emergency room was busy with the typical Sunday evening crowd. Minor injuries, illnesses that couldn't wait until Monday, and now, Sarah Mitchell. When the Iron Brotherhood's motorcycles rolled into the hospital parking lot, they attracted immediate attention. A dozen bikers in leather vests weren't exactly typical hospital visitors. But as they filed into the emergency room waiting area, removing their sunglasses, speaking quietly, showing respect for the environment, the initial wariness from staff members eased. Jack approached the reception desk, where a tired-looking nurse in her 40s looked up at him with raised eyebrows. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Her name tag read, "Patricia." "Yes, ma'am. We're here to check on Sarah Mitchell. She was brought in from a hit-and-run accident about an hour ago." Patricia's expression immediately softened. "Oh, you're friends of Sarah's. We witnessed the aftermath of the accident. We wanted to make sure she and her daughter are okay." "That's very kind of you." Patricia typed something into her computer. "Sarah is still being evaluated. She has a concussion, severe whiplash, and possible spinal injuries. They're doing X-rays and an MRI right now. Her daughter, Emma, is with a social worker." "Her aunt has been contacted," Jack said. "Kelly Baker from Charlottesville. She should be on her way." "Yes, I see that in the notes. She called ahead. Should be here within the hour." "Can we see Emma? We don't want her to be alone." Patricia studied Jack for a moment, taking in the weathered face, the sincere concern in his eyes, the patch on his vest that read "President" under the Iron Brotherhood insignia. "Normally we don't allow non-family members access, but..." She glanced at her computer screen again. "The social worker noted that Emma specifically asked about the bikers who helped my mom." "That's you?" "Yes, ma'am." A small smile crossed Patricia's face. "Room 3, down that hallway. Second door on the left. But please, keep it brief and quiet. She's been through a terrible trauma." "Understood. Thank you." Jack motioned to Rachel. "You come with me. The rest of you wait here. We don't want to overwhelm her." In Room 3 was a small examination room that had been temporarily converted into a holding area for Emma. Inside, a social worker named Jennifer sat with the little girl, who clutched her stuffed rabbit and stared at the wall with haunted eyes. When the door opened and Emma saw Rachel, her face transformed. She slid off the examination table and ran across the room, throwing her small arms around Rachel's waist. "You came back," Emma whispered. Rachel knelt down, embracing the child. "Of course I came back. I told you we'd take care of you, didn't I?" Emma nodded against Rachel's shoulder, then pulled back to look at Jack. "Did you find them? The bad men?" Jack crouched down to her level. "Yes, Emma. The police arrested them. They're in jail right now." "Good." That same hardness Jack had seen before flickered across Emma's young face. "Will they stay in jail?" How do you explain the failures of the justice system to a 6-year-old, Jack wondered. He decided on honesty. "They'll have to go to court and face a judge. The judge will decide their punishment. But I promise you this, we're going to make sure everyone knows what they did. They won't get away with hurting your mom." Emma seemed to consider this, then nodded slowly. "Okay, can I see my mommy now?" Jennifer, the social worker, spoke up. "The doctors are still with her, sweetie. But as soon as they're done, you can see her. I promise." "Your Aunt Kelly is on her way too," Rachel added. "She'll be here soon." "Aunt Kelly is nice," Emma said softly, "but I want my mommy." The words hit Jack like a punch to the chest. He thought of his own daughter, grown now, living in North Carolina with kids of her own, but he remembered when she was Emma's age. He remembered every scraped knee, every nightmare, every moment she'd reached for him for comfort and safety. "I know you do, sweetheart," he said gently. "Your mommy is very strong. She's going to be okay." "She has to be," Emma said, her voice barely audible. "It's just us, me and mommy. She takes care of me. Who's going to take care of her?" Rachel and Jack exchanged glances. "We will," Rachel said firmly. "All of us. The whole town. You're not alone, Emma. Neither is your mom." A soft knock on the door interrupted them. A doctor in scrubs entered, a clipboard in hand. She was in her 40s with kind eyes and grey streaking her dark hair. "Are you Emma Mitchell's family?" she asked. "I'm her social worker," Jennifer said. "These are friends of the family." The doctor looked at Jack and Rachel's leather vests, seemed to make a calculation, and decided whatever judgment she might have had could wait. "I'm Dr. Anita Patel. I've been treating Sarah Mitchell. I wanted to update you all on her condition." She glanced at Emma. "Maybe we should speak outside." "No," Emma said with surprising force. "I want to know about my mommy. Please." Dr. Patel hesitated, then nodded. She pulled up a chair and sat down, so she was at Emma's eye level, a gesture that immediately raised Jack's respect for her. "Your mommy was hurt in the accident, Emma. She hit her head and hurt her neck and back, but she's awake now and she's talking. That's a very good sign. Is she going to be okay?" Emma's hands twisted in her rabbit's worn fur. "She's going to need rest and treatment. We're admitting her overnight for observation because of the concussion. Her neck is going to be very sore for a while. Whiplash takes time to heal, and we're concerned about her back. The X-rays show some compression in her lumbar spine. We're waiting on MRI results to determine if there's any serious damage." "Can she walk?" Jack asked quietly. "Yes, but with significant pain. We've given her medication for that. She'll likely need physical therapy." "What about work?" Jack knew Sarah was a nurse. He'd asked around. Dr. Patel's expression grew more serious. "That's going to depend on the MRI results and her recovery. At minimum, she'll be out for several weeks. If the spinal injury is more severe..." She left the implication hanging. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But Mommy has to work. We need money for our apartment and food and stuff." The adults in the room felt the weight of that statement. This child, at 6 years old, already understood financial precarity, already knew that her mother's injury meant more than just pain. It meant survival was at stake. "That's what we're here for, kiddo," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "Remember what Rachel said? We're going to help. You and your mom don't have to worry about that." "But you don't even know us," Emma said, confusion mixing with hope on her face. "Doesn't matter," Rachel replied. "In this town, we help each other. That's what neighbors do. That's what community means." Dr. Patel stood up. "Emma, how would you like to see your mommy now? She's asking for you." Emma was off the examination table in an instant. "Yes, please." "All right, follow me. But remember, she's hooked up to monitors and IVs. Don't be scared by all the equipment, okay? It's just helping her heal." As they walked down the corridor, Emma holding Rachel's hand, Jack and Jennifer following, Jack pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to the Brotherhood waiting in the lobby. "Mother's condition stable but serious. Back injury. Will need long-term support. Get the word out to all chapters. This family needs us." The responses came immediately. "On it, Prez. Richmond chapter wants to help. What do they need?" "Brother's wife works for a physical therapy clinic. She's offering services pro bono. Fundraisers at 18K and climbing." Jack felt something loosen in his chest. This right here was why the Brotherhood existed. Not for the motorcycles or the patches or the reputation. It existed for moments like this, when people needed help and the community rallied. They reached Sarah's room. Through the small window in the door, Jack could see her lying in the hospital bed, her neck in a cervical collar, her face bruised and swollen. But she was awake, and when she saw Emma, her eyes lit up despite the obvious pain. Dr. Patel opened the door. "Sarah, you have visitors." "Mommy!" Emma ran to the bed, then stopped short, suddenly afraid to hurt her mother. "Come here, baby," Sarah whispered, her voice hoarse. She held out one arm, the other was connected to an IV. "Careful, but come here." Emma climbed onto a chair and leaned carefully against her mother's side, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy, I was so scared." "I know, sweetie. I know, but we're okay. We're both okay." Sarah's own tears fell as she stroked Emma's hair. Then her eyes lifted and met Jack's through the doorway. "You," she said. "You were there, at the accident." Jack stepped into the room, removing his leather cap, an old habit, showing respect in serious situations. "Yes, ma'am. Jack Reeves, Iron Brotherhood MC. You helped us." It wasn't a question. "We did what anyone should do." "The police, they said you gave them information, that you're the reason they caught those men so quickly. We just pointed them in the right direction." Sarah's face hardened, a flash of the strength that had kept her and Emma afloat for 2 years. "They tried to run. They hit us and they ran. I know, but they're in custody now. They'll face justice." "Will they?" Sarah's voice was bitter. "I've lived here long enough to know the Peterson name. They have money and connections. Those boys will probably walk away with a fine and community service." Jack couldn't argue with that. It was probably true. "Maybe," he said quietly. "But maybe not this time. The whole town knows what happened. The whole region, actually. The stories everywhere. Sometimes public pressure changes the equation." Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you for being there, for helping Emma, for—" her voice cracked, "for not letting them get away with it." "You don't need to thank us, Mom. We're just doing right." Emma lifted her head from her mother's shoulder. "Mommy, they said they're going to help us, because we're neighbors." Sarah's eyes widened. "Help us? I don't understand." Rachel stepped forward. "Mrs. Mitchell, Sarah, please." Sarah, the Iron Brotherhood, along with several other motorcycle clubs in Virginia and beyond, has set up a fundraiser to help with your medical expenses and to support you and Emma while you recover. We know you're a single mother. We know you work at this hospital. We know missing work is going to be hard." Sarah's face flushed. "I can't accept charity. It's not charity," Jack interrupted firmly. "It's community support. It's people helping people. You'd do the same if the situation were reversed, wouldn't you?" Sarah opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, because she would. She was a nurse. She'd spent her entire career helping people, often going above and beyond what was required. "I don't know what to say," she finally whispered. "Say you'll accept the help," Rachel said gently. "Say you'll focus on healing and taking care of that beautiful daughter of yours, and let the rest of us handle the details." Sarah looked down at Emma, who was watching her mother with those wide, trusting eyes. Eyes that believed everything would be okay because Mommy was strong. Mommy always figured things out. "Okay," Sarah said softly. "Okay. Thank you." A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. A woman's voice, loud and frantic. "Where's my sister? Where's Sarah Mitchell?" "That's Aunt Kelly," Emma exclaimed. Moments later, a woman in her mid-30s burst into the room, her face tear-stained and panicked. Kelly Baker looked like an older version of Sarah, same brown eyes, same determined chin. But where Sarah was thin from stress and overwork, Kelly looked healthy and well-rested, the product of a different life, a life with a supportive husband and financial stability. "Sarah! Oh my God, Sarah!" Kelly rushed to the bed, carefully embracing her sister. "I got here as fast as I could. The traffic was terrible, and I was so scared, and— Emma, baby!" She reached for her niece, pulling her into the hug. For a moment the room was filled with the sound of relieved sobs and whispered reassurances. Jack and Rachel quietly stepped back, giving the family space. After a few minutes, Kelly pulled back and seemed to notice the bikers for the first time. Her eyes widened. "Who?" "They helped us," Sarah said quickly. "The Iron Brotherhood. They were there after the accident. They helped catch the men who hit us." Kelly's expression cycled through confusion, surprise, and finally gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Jack nodded. "We should let you folks have privacy. Dr. Patel, can we speak outside?" In the hallway with the door closed, Dr. Patel provided more details about Sarah's condition and prognosis. The news wasn't great. The MRI had come back showing a herniated disc in her lower back. She'd need extensive physical therapy, possibly surgery. She'd be out of work for at least 3 months, possibly 6. The good news is, with proper treatment, she should make a full recovery, Dr. Patel concluded. But it's going to be a long road. What about costs? Jack asked. With her insurance through the hospital, a lot will be covered, but there'll still be substantial out-of-pocket expenses, physical therapy co-pays, medications, possibly surgical costs if it comes to that, and that doesn't account for lost wages. Jack pulled out his phone and checked the GoFundMe. It was now at $34,000. I think we can help with that, he said. That night, the Iron Brotherhood gathered at their clubhouse, a renovated warehouse on the outskirts of Millbrook. It was their sanctuary, a place with a bar, a garage for working on bikes, pool tables, and a meeting room where they conducted business. Jack stood at the head of the table, the Brotherhood arrayed before him. Rachel sat at his right hand, Marcus at his left. Round the table were the faces of men and women who'd become his family over the years. They came from all walks of life, mechanics, veterans, teachers, small business owners, but they all shared a common bond, loyalty, brotherhood, and a commitment to protecting their community. Brothers and sisters, Jack began, today we witness something that happens too often. A good person, a single mother doing her best to provide for her child, was victimized by reckless, selfish individuals who thought they could escape consequences. But today, something different happened. Today, we were there. Today, we made a difference. Voices murmured agreement around the table. The fundraiser is up to $40,000 and still climbing. We've had offers of help from chapters across 3 states. Local businesses are reaching out, wanting to support Sarah Mitchell. The news coverage is everywhere. Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner's faces are all over social media. Their actions have been exposed. What about the legal side? Marcus asked. What are we looking at? I talked to a lawyer friend earlier, Jack replied. With the evidence, the damaged truck, witness statements, Emma's testimony, the fact that they fled the scene, the prosecutor has a strong case. They're being charged with felony hit and run, causing serious injury, reckless driving, and potentially vehicular assault. That's looking at 2 to 10 years in prison. But, Rachel prompted, hearing the hesitation in Jack's voice. But Charles Peterson has already hired Gerald Marshall, one of the best defense attorneys in Virginia. Marshall specializes in getting wealthy kids out of trouble. He'll argue it was an accident, that his clients panicked, that they deserve leniency because they have no prior violent offenses. Tommy Peterson has 2 DUIs, Tiny objected. Sealed juvenile records, apparently. Marshall will keep those out. The mood in the room darkened. So what do we do? Danny asked. We can't let them walk. We maintain pressure, Jack said firmly. We make sure this stays in the public eye. We attend every court hearing. We organize peaceful demonstrations. Emphasis on peaceful. We work with victim advocacy groups. We show the prosecutor that this community demands justice. And Sarah Mitchell? Rachel asked. How do we help her long term? We set up a trust fund for Emma's education. We coordinate volunteers to help with transportation to medical appointments, grocery shopping, household chores, while Sarah recovers. We leverage our business connections to make sure she has a job to come back to when she's healed. We become the support system she's going to need. Marcus leaned forward. Prez, that's a big commitment. Long-term support, not just a quick fundraiser. I know. But this is what we do, isn't it? We talk about brotherhood, about protecting our community. Here's our chance to prove it means something. Jack looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. I'm not ordering anyone to participate. This has to be voluntary. But I'm asking, will you stand with me? Will you help this family? The response was unanimous. Fists pounded on the table in affirmation. Voices rose in agreement. Hell yes. We're in, Prez. For Sarah and Emma. Rachel stood up, her voice clear and strong. I'll coordinate the volunteer effort. I'll work with Kelly Baker and create a schedule for support. We'll make sure Sarah and Emma never feel alone. I'll handle the business connections, Marcus added. I know people at the hospital board. We'll make sure Sarah's job is protected. I'll keep social media active, Danny said. Keep the pressure on. Keep the story alive. One by one, the members of the Iron Brotherhood pledged their support. And Jack felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose that went beyond the Brotherhood itself. This was bigger than motorcycles and leather vests. This was about real change, real justice, real community. His phone buzzed, a text from Officer Davidson. FYI, both suspects posted bail 2 hours ago, $100K each. They're out but on GPS monitoring. Thought you should know. Jack showed the message to Marcus, who cursed under his breath. Already? Marcus said. Jesus, that was fast. Charles Peterson moves fast when his reputation is on the line, Jack replied. But that's okay. We're just getting started. He typed a response to Davidson. Thanks for the heads up. We'll be watching. Then Jack sent a message to the Brotherhood's group chat. Suspects are out on bail. Tomorrow morning I want eyes on the Peterson house. Document everything. Where they go, who they see. Legal surveillance only. We're not crossing any lines, but we're going to make damn sure they don't try to flee or intimidate witnesses. The replies came fast. On it. I'll take first watch. Got a GoPro. We'll document everything. Jack set his phone down and addressed the Brotherhood one more time. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to face pushback. Charles Peterson has connections, money, and he's going to fight dirty. But we have something he doesn't. We have the truth, we have the community, and we have each other. Are we ready for this? The answer was a roar of affirmation that shook the walls of the clubhouse. Outside, in the warm Virginia night, the sound of thunder echoed across Millbrook, but it wasn't a storm approaching. It was the sound of justice beginning to roll forward, carried on the rumble of motorcycle engines and the voices of people who refused to stay silent. Monday morning dawned grey and humid, typical for Virginia in late spring. The news cycle had picked up the story of Sarah Mitchell and Emma overnight, and it had grown beyond what anyone expected. What started as a local hit-and-run had become a regional story about justice, community, and the failure of systems to protect ordinary people from the consequences of wealthy privilege. WTVR CBS 6. Richmond led with it at 6 a.m. Community rallies around mother and daughter after hit-and-run by connected teens. The anchor, a veteran newsman named Derek Thompson, didn't pull punches. 23-year-old Tommy Peterson and 22-year-old Kyle Warner, both from prominent Millbrook families, were arrested Sunday evening after allegedly fleeing the scene of a serious accident on Highway 29. Sarah Mitchell, a 32-year-old nurse and single mother, suffered a concussion, severe whiplash, and a herniated disc in the collision. Her 6-year-old daughter Emma witnessed the entire event. Both suspects posted bail within hours of their arrest, raising questions about equal justice under the law. The footage cut to the scene of the accident, showing the destroyed Toyota Camry, then to the Peterson residence, with its black Dodge Ram prominently displayed, damage visible even in the news footage. At the Iron Brotherhood clubhouse, Jack and a dozen brothers watched the coverage over breakfast. Someone had made a run to the local diner. Biscuits, gravy, bacon, eggs, and the long table was covered with food and coffee. It's everywhere, Danny said, scrolling through his tablet. Twitter, or X, whatever they call it now, is exploding. Reddit's got multiple threads. TikTok has videos with over 2 million views. People are pissed. Good, Marcus said around a mouthful of biscuit. Let them be pissed. Anger drives action. Rachel came in from the other room, her phone pressed to her ear. She'd been coordinating with Kelly Baker since early morning. She hung up and addressed Jack. Sarah's being discharged today. Kelly's taking them back to Sarah's apartment. It's a second-floor walk-up, no elevator. Sarah can barely walk. This is going to be rough, Jack frowned. Second floor with a back injury, that's not sustainable. No, it's not. Kelly's talking about taking them back to Charlottesville with her, but Sarah doesn't want to uproot Emma from school, doesn't want to feel like she's running away or being a burden. Pride, Tiny observed. I get it, but sometimes pride is dangerous. We need to solve the immediate problem, Jack said, thinking. Marcus, You know anybody with a ground floor apartment or house they'd rent cheap or free for a couple months? Marcus snapped his fingers. Betty Carmichael. Remember her? Her son was in that motorcycle accident last year. We helped with his recovery. She's got a little cottage behind her main house. She's been trying to rent it, but it's small, doesn't attract many takers. I bet she'd let Sarah use it. Call her now. While Marcus stepped outside to make the call, Jack's phone rang. Officer Davidson. Jack, we've got a situation. What kind of situation? Gerald Marshall, the defense attorney, is holding a press conference at 10 a.m. He's planning to paint his clients as victims of a witch hunt. He's going to argue media bias and community prejudice. Jack's jaw clenched. Of course he is. There's more. He's going to request a change of venue, claim his clients can't get a fair trial in Millbrook because of the Iron Brotherhood's intimidation tactics. We haven't done anything illegal. I know that, and you know that. But Marshall's going to spin it. He's going to show footage of your bikes outside the hospital, outside the Peterson house. He's going to make you guys look like a gang threatening innocent boys. Jack took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. Where's the press conference? County Courthouse steps. We'll be there. Jack, maybe that's not a good idea. We'll be there, Jack repeated firmly. Peaceful, respectful, but we'll be there. Marshall wants to paint us as the bad guys? Fine. Let him try. Let people see who we really are. After hanging up, Jack addressed the Brotherhood. We've got a situation. The defense is trying to flip the narrative. We need to be smart about this. He laid out Davidson's information. The brothers listened, anger building, but they stayed focused. We show up, Jack concluded, but we do it right. No leather vests. We don't want to look like a gang. We wear regular clothes. We bring American flags. We stand silent and respectful. We let our presence speak louder than words. What about signs? Rachel asked. Simple ones. Justice for Sarah and Emma. No more hit and runs. Nothing aggressive. We're not there to threaten or intimidate. We're there as concerned citizens. Marcus came back in, grinning. Betty says yes. The cottage is theirs for as long as they need it. Rent-free. It's furnished, 1 bedroom plus a pull-out couch. Ground floor, small yard for Emma to play in. Available immediately. That's perfect, Rachel said. I'll call Kelly. By 9:30 a.m., over 200 people had gathered at the Millbrook County Courthouse. Word had spread through social media, text chains, and old-fashioned phone calls. The Iron Brotherhood was there, as Jack had instructed, dressed in jeans and plain T-shirts, holding American flags and simple signs. But they weren't alone. Teachers from Emma's elementary school held signs reading, "Protect our children." The nursing staff from Millbrook Community Hospital wore their scrubs, a silent statement about who Sarah Mitchell was and what she meant to the community. Local business owners, their employees, families with children, all had come out. The police presence was heavy, but relaxed. Officer Davidson had clearly briefed his colleagues. This was a peaceful gathering. The crowd was quiet, respectful, but their very presence was a statement. At exactly 10 a.m., Gerald Marshall emerged from the courthouse with Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner flanking him. Charles Peterson stood behind his son, his expression a carefully constructed mask of dignified concern. Both young men wore suits and looked appropriately remorseful. Marshall had obviously coached them well. The assembled press, local news crews and several national outlets that had picked up the story, turned their cameras on the defense attorney. Marshall was in his 60s, silver-haired, expensive suit, the very picture of establishment power. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marshall began, his voice smooth and practiced, "thank you for being here. My clients, Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner, asked me to read the following statement." He pulled out a piece of paper and began reading. "We deeply regret the accident that occurred on Sunday evening. We acknowledge that we made a serious error in judgment by leaving the scene. We were scared and confused, But that does not excuse our actions. We are fully cooperating with the investigation and are committed to taking responsibility for our mistakes. We ask for the community's understanding and forgiveness as we work through the legal process." Marshall paused, letting the words sink in. Then he folded the paper and continued in his own voice. "However, I must address the troubling response that has emerged in the aftermath of this unfortunate incident. My clients have been subjected to a trial by social media. Their faces have been plastered across the internet, accompanied by threats of violence and calls for vigilante justice. They and their families have received death threats. Their homes have been surveilled by members of a motorcycle club with a history of criminal activity." "That's a lie!" someone shouted from the crowd. Marshall ignored the interruption, creating an atmosphere of intimidation and fear. "This is not justice. This is mob rule." Jack felt the crowd around him stirring, anger building. He raised his hand, a signal to his brothers and the community. "Stay calm. Let him finish." Marshall continued, "We will be filing a motion for change of venue. My clients cannot receive a fair trial in Millbrook County, where they have been prejudged and vilified by community activists with their own agenda. Furthermore, we are requesting that the charges be reduced from felonies to misdemeanors. This was an accident, not a crime. 2 young men made a mistake, a serious mistake, yes, but they deserve the same presumption of innocence and fair treatment that any citizen would receive." A reporter from CBS 6 raised her hand. "Mr. Marshall, what about the victims? Sarah Mitchell is facing months of recovery and substantial medical bills. Emma Mitchell witnessed her mother being seriously injured. Don't they deserve justice?" Marshall's expression was sympathetic, but firm. "Of course they deserve compassion and support. My clients are prepared to make restitution for medical expenses and other costs through civil court. But that is separate from the criminal charges, which we maintain are overblown and influenced by public hysteria rather than facts." Another reporter: "What about the allegation that your clients have received favorable treatment due to their families' wealth and connections? Isn't it true that both have prior offenses that were dismissed or sealed? My clients' juvenile records are sealed by law, as are those of many young people who made mistakes in their youth. That information is not relevant to this case, and I won't comment on it." "Mr. Marshall," a third reporter called out, "what do you say to the community members who are here today, many of whom knew Sarah Mitchell and are demanding justice?" Marshall looked at the crowd for the first time, his gaze sweeping over the faces, the signs, the flags. His expression hardened. "I say that justice is not determined by mob sentiment. Justice is determined by law, by facts, by a fair trial in an unbiased courtroom. If these people truly care about justice, they'll let the legal process work without interference." Jack had heard enough. He stepped forward from the crowd, not aggressively, just enough to be visible. His movement was calm, measured, but it drew attention. Cameras swiveled toward him. "Mr. Marshall," Jack said, his voice carrying across the courthouse steps, "you don't speak for this community." Marshall's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" "Jack Reeves, president of the Iron Brotherhood Motorcycle Club. You mentioned us in your statement. I don't believe this is an appropriate forum." "You made it a forum when you lied about us," Jack interrupted, his tone still respectful but firm. "You called us criminals. You said we've engaged in intimidation. That's false, and you know it. We are law-abiding citizens. We pay taxes. We contribute to this community. And we were there when Sarah Mitchell and her daughter needed help. Where were your clients?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Marshall's face flushed. "This is exactly the kind of intimidation I'm talking about. Standing in a public place, exercising our First Amendment rights, is not intimidation," Jack continued. "Attending a public press conference is not intimidation. But you know what is? 2 men hitting a car, looking directly at the woman they injured, and then driving away. That's intimidation. That's cowardice." The crowd erupted in applause. Tommy Peterson, standing behind Marshall, looked like he wanted to disappear. His father, Charles, whispered something urgently to Marshall. Marshall held up his hands. "This press conference is over. We'll be filing our motions with the court, and we'll let the legal system determine the outcome." As Marshall, the Petersons, and Kyle Warner retreated into the courthouse, the crowd began chanting, "Justice for Sarah, justice for Emma, justice for Sarah, justice for Emma." The reporters, sensing the better story, turned their cameras on Jack and the community. A young journalist from NBC 29 thrust a microphone toward him. "Mr. Reeves, can you tell us why you and the Iron Brotherhood have gotten involved in this case?" Jack took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "We haven't gotten involved. We were there. We witnessed the aftermath of this hit and run. We saw a little girl crying for her injured mother. We saw two men flee the scene of a crime, and we did what any decent human being would do. We helped. We provided information to the police. We've supported the victim and her daughter. That's not criminal, that's community. But Mr. Marshall says your presence is intimidating to his clients. His clients should feel intimidated by the consequences of their actions, not by citizens standing up for what's right. Look around." Jack gestured to the crowd. "These aren't bikers. Well, some of them are." He smiled slightly. "But most are teachers, nurses, parents, business owners. This is what community looks like when it refuses to accept that wealth and connections can buy your way out of justice." A reporter from the Washington Post spoke up. "This story has resonated nationally because it touches on larger issues of privilege and justice. What do you think this case represents?" Jack thought for a moment. "I think it represents a moment of choice. We can either believe that there are two systems of justice, one for the wealthy and connected, one for everyone else, or we can demand that the law applies equally to everyone, regardless of who your daddy is or how much money you have." Sarah Mitchell is a single mother, a nurse who works double shifts to provide for her daughter. She doesn't have expensive lawyers or powerful connections. But she has something Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner don't have. She has this community standing behind her. The applause was thunderous. Later that afternoon, Rachel and Jack helped Kelly Baker move Sarah and Emma into Betty Carmichael's cottage. The little house was charming, white-painted wood, a small front porch with a rocking chair, a fenced yard with an old oak tree. It was modest but clean and comfortable. Worlds better than the second-floor walk-up Sarah had been living in. Betty Carmichael herself was there, a widow in her 70s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She'd prepared the cottage with fresh linens, stocked the refrigerator, even put flowers on the small kitchen table. "You take all the time you need, dear," Betty said to Sarah, who was moving slowly, painfully, even with Kelly's help. "My Henry always said a home should be a place of healing. After you all helped my son last year, this is the least I can do." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you. By getting better, by taking care of that precious girl, that's all the thanks I need." Emma explored the cottage with the resilience of childhood, checking out the bedroom where she'd sleep with her mother, discovering the small toy box Betty had filled with books and puzzles. In the backyard, she found a tire swing hanging from the oak tree. "Mommy, look, a swing!" Emma's voice held the first real joy Jack had heard from her since the accident. Sarah, sitting carefully on the porch steps, smiled despite her pain. "I see it, baby. Be careful." Jack and Rachel finished unloading the few belongings Kelly had brought from Sarah's apartment. Clothes, Emma's school supplies, Sarah's medical records. It wasn't much. Sarah and Emma's entire life fit in a few boxes and suitcases. Kelly pulled Jack aside. "I need to get back to Charlottesville tonight. My husband and kids need me, but I'll be back this weekend. Is there someone who can check on Sarah during the week? I'm worried about her being alone with Emma while she's in this much pain." "Already arranged," Rachel said, joining them. "I've set up a rotation of volunteers. Someone will stop by every morning and evening, help with meals, housework, getting Emma to and from school. Sarah won't be alone." Kelly's relief was visible. "Thank you, both of you." I don't understand why you're doing all this for my sister, but thank you. Because it's right, Rachel said simply. That evening, after Kelly had left and Emma was distracted by a new puzzle, Jack sat on the porch steps with Sarah. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah moved slowly, carefully lowering herself to sit beside him. "How are you really doing?" Jack asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I'm terrified. The doctor says I'll recover, but she also says it could take months. I can't work. I have bills. Emma needs things. I've always been the one who handles everything, who figures it out, who makes it work. And now—" her voice broke. "I can't even climb stairs without excruciating pain. That's why you have help now. But for how long? People say they'll help, and they mean it in the moment, but life goes on. People get busy. Weeks turn into months, and eventually I'll just be that woman with the back injury who needs too much help." Jack turned to look at her directly. "Sarah, I'm going to tell you something about the Iron Brotherhood. We're not a social club. We're not weekend riders who play dress up in leather and pretend to be rebels. We are a family, a chosen family. And when we say we're here for someone, we mean it for the long haul." "But why? You don't even know me." "We know enough. We know you're a nurse who dedicates her life to helping people. We know you're a single mother doing everything you can for your daughter. We know you got hurt because of two selfish cowards, and that you deserve better than to suffer alone." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I saw what happened at the courthouse today. The news showed it. You stood up to that lawyer. Marshall's a piece of work, but he's going to lose. You don't know that. The Petersons have money, power. They have money. We have something better. We have truth, and we have community. You know what nobody can buy? Genuine support from hundreds of people who actually care. That press conference backfired on Marshall. People are even more outraged now. The prosecutor's office has been flooded with calls demanding they pursue the maximum charges. But what if Tommy and Kyle get off anyway? What if they just pay a fine and walk away?" Jack's expression hardened. "Then we make sure everyone knows what they did. We make sure their names are forever associated with cowardice and privilege. We make sure that every time someone searches their names for the rest of their lives, this story comes up. That's not revenge. That's accountability." Emma appeared at the door. "Mommy, can we have dinner? I'm hungry." Sarah started to rise, grimacing with pain. "I've got it," Rachel said, emerging from the cottage. "I made lasagna earlier. It's in the oven. Betty also brought over a chicken casserole and about 5 different sides. You're not going to go hungry anytime soon." "I can't believe how kind everyone is being," Sarah said softly. "Get used to it," Jack said with a slight smile. "This is what community looks like. You're one of us now, whether you want to be or not." That night, after Jack and Rachel had left, after Emma had fallen asleep in the small bedroom clutching her stuffed rabbit, Sarah sat alone in the living room. The cottage was quiet except for the ticking of an old clock on the mantel. Through the window, she could see Betty Carmichael's main house, lights glowing warmly. Sarah thought about her life, the divorce, the struggle, the constant worry about money and Emma's future. She thought about the accident, those terrifying seconds of impact, the moment she thought she might die and leave Emma alone. But she also thought about what had happened since. The bikers who'd stayed with Emma, who'd helped catch the men who hurt them, the community that had rallied, the fundraiser that had raised over $50,000. This cottage offered freely, the volunteers who'd promised to help, Jack Reeves and his steady presence, his promise that they wouldn't face this alone. For the first time in years, Sarah didn't feel alone against the world. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kelly. "News update. Prosecutor's office released a statement. They're not reducing charges, pursuing full felony prosecution. Public pressure worked." Sarah read the message twice, then felt tears streaming down her face. Not tears of pain or fear this time. Tears of something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. She looked at the picture on her phone's wallpaper. Emma smiling at the beach last summer, their one vacation, 3 days at Virginia Beach, that had cost more than Sarah could afford, but had been worth every penny to see her daughter's joy. "We're going to be okay, baby," Sarah whispered to the empty room. "We're going to be okay." 3 months passed. The Virginia summer gave way to early fall, and with the changing seasons came progress, slow but steady, like the turning of a great wheel that once set in motion could not be stopped. Sarah's physical therapy sessions were grueling. 3 times a week, Rachel or another volunteer from the Iron Brotherhood would drive her to the clinic, where Dr. Patricia Simmons put her through exercises that left her exhausted and aching. But gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, the pain lessened. The strength returned. The herniated disc, with proper treatment and rest, began to heal. Emma adjusted to the cottage and the new normal of their lives. The small yard became her kingdom, the tire swing her throne. Betty Carmichael became an honorary grandmother, always ready with cookies and stories. The volunteers who rotated through, bringing meals, helping with housework, driving Emma to school, became familiar faces, friends, and through it all, the Iron Brotherhood remained present. Not intrusive, not overwhelming, but there, a steady presence that said, "You are not alone." The legal case moved forward too, though more slowly than anyone wanted. Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner had pleaded not guilty at their arraignment. Gerald Marshall, true to his word, had filed a motion for change of venue, claiming his clients couldn't receive a fair trial in Millbrook. Judge Catherine Brennan, a no-nonsense jurist with 30 years on the bench, had denied the motion. "The remedy for pre-trial publicity," Judge Brennan had written in her decision, "is not to relocate the trial, but to ensure a fair jury selection process. The defendants have failed to prove that they cannot receive fair treatment in Millbrook County. Community interest in a case does not equal bias." Marshall had also filed motions to suppress evidence and to reduce the felony charges to misdemeanors. Both were denied. The trial date was set for early October. As October approached, the community prepared. The Iron Brotherhood organized a rally at the courthouse steps, not angry or threatening, but a show of support for Sarah and Emma. Over 500 people attended, including Sarah herself, who stood with the aid of a cane, but stood nonetheless. "I want to thank everyone," Sarah said, her voice amplified by the microphone someone had set up. "3 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything, my health, my ability to work, my ability to care for my daughter. But this community proved me wrong. You showed me that I'm not alone, that we're not alone." Emma stood beside her mother, holding Sarah's free hand. The little girl who'd been so traumatized by the accident had found resilience, supported by the network of care around her. "When I look at my daughter," Sarah continued, "I see hope, I see strength, and I see the future we're building together, a future where people who cause harm face consequences, where wealth doesn't buy immunity, where community means something real." The applause was deafening. Jack watched from the crowd, Rachel beside him. Marcus leaned over and said, "You think they'll convict?" "They will," Jack replied with certainty. "The evidence is solid. The jury will see right through Marshall's spin. And if they don't," Jack's expression hardened, "then we keep fighting. But I don't think it'll come to that." The trial of Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner began on October 10th. The courthouse was packed, with overflow crowds gathering outside to watch on screens that had been set up. The Iron Brotherhood was there in force, wearing their vests now. This was the moment they'd been building toward, and they wanted Tommy and Kyle to see them, to understand that their actions had consequences beyond the legal system. The prosecution, led by Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney Jennifer Chen, laid out a devastating case. Eyewitness testimony from multiple drivers who'd seen the black Dodge Ram flee the scene. Emma's testimony, delivered via recorded deposition to spare her the trauma of appearing in court, describing the eagle tattoo she'd seen on the driver's neck. The physical evidence, the damaged truck, paint transfer analysis, accident reconstruction, showing the Ram had been traveling at least 60 miles per hour when it hit Sarah's stopped car. Dr. Patel testified about Sarah's injuries, making clear the severity and long-term impact. Physical therapy records showed the extensive treatment required. Financial records documented the medical bills and lost wages. Gerald Marshall fought back with everything he had. He argued that Tommy had been driving too fast, but not recklessly, that the accident was just that, an accident. He claimed his clients had panicked in the moment, but had always intended to take responsibility. He tried to paint Tommy and Kyle as good kids who'd made one mistake, but then came Sarah's testimony. She walked to the witness stand without her cane. Dr. Simmons had cleared her for that small show of strength. She sat, looked directly at Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner, and began to speak. "They looked at me," Sarah said, her voice steady. "After they hit us, I saw the driver, Tommy, look right at me through my broken window. I was bleeding, I was hurt, and my daughter was crying in the back seat. He saw all of that, and then he drove away." "Objection," Marshall said. "The witness cannot know what the defendant was thinking." "I'm not describing what he was thinking," Sarah interrupted, her voice sharper now. "I'm describing what he did. He looked at us, saw we were hurt, and made a choice. He chose to run." Judge Brennan nodded. "Overruled. The witness may continue." Sarah turned to the jury. "I work as a nurse. I've spent my entire career helping people in their worst moments. When someone is hurt, you help them. You don't run. You don't leave them suffering while you save yourself. These men," she gestured at Tommy and Kyle, "they did the opposite of everything I've been taught, everything I believe in. And the worst part? They did it because they thought they could get away with it. They thought their money and their connections would protect them." "Your Honor," Marshall tried to object again. "Mr. Marshall, the witness is describing her perception of events. That's her right." "Overruled." Sarah continued, emotion breaking through now. "My daughter was 6 years old. She saw her mother hurt. She saw the men who hurt me run away. And she learned a terrible lesson that day, that sometimes bad people don't face consequences. But I want her to learn a different lesson. I want her to learn that justice exists, that truth matters, that this community won't let cruelty go unpunished." By the time Sarah finished testifying, several jurors were wiping their eyes. Marshall's cross-examination was careful, almost gentle. He knew attacking Sarah would backfire spectacularly. He tried to suggest she couldn't be certain of what she'd seen, that she'd been in shock, that her memory might be faulty. But Sarah held firm. "I remember perfectly," she said. "I'll never forget." The defense called character witnesses. Tommy's high school teachers, Kyle's pastor, family friends who testified about what good young men they were. But it felt hollow compared to the weight of evidence and Sarah's testimony. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was silent. Judge Brennan read the verdict herself. "On the charge of felony hit and run causing serious bodily injury, we find the defendant, Thomas Peterson, guilty." Tommy's mother gasped. Charles Peterson's face went white. "On the charge of reckless driving, we find the defendant, Thomas Peterson, guilty. For the defendant, Kyle Warner, on the charge of felony hit and run causing serious bodily injury, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of reckless driving, we find the defendant, Kyle Warner, guilty." The courtroom erupted. Judge Brennan gavelled for order, but it took several minutes for the room to calm down. Outside, the crowd that had gathered roared when the news reached them. The Iron Brotherhood's engines revved, a sound of triumph, of justice served. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the days between the verdict and sentencing, Jack visited Sarah and Emma at the cottage. Sarah was mobile now without the cane. Though she still had limitations and pain on bad days, she'd been cleared to return to work part-time starting next month, a milestone she'd been working toward for months. They sat on the porch while Emma played in the yard, the October afternoon cool but pleasant. I can't believe they were actually convicted, Sarah said. I was so afraid they'd get off. The evidence was overwhelming, and you were amazing on the stand. I just told the truth. That's what made it powerful. Sarah was quiet for a moment, watching Emma push the tire swing in slow circles. What do you think they'll get? Prison time? Chen is asking for 3 years for Tommy, 2 for Kyle. With good behavior, probably 18 months and 12 months, respectively. Not as much as I'd like, but it's something. 3 years. Sarah tested the words. It feels both like too much and not enough at the same time. I know what you mean, but here's what matters. They were held accountable. Their actions had consequences, and that sends a message to everyone, not just in Millbrook, but everywhere this story reached. Wealth and connections don't buy immunity from justice. Because of you, Sarah said. Because the Iron Brotherhood wouldn't let it go. Because the community wouldn't let it go, Jack corrected. We were just the catalyst. Emma ran up to the porch, breathless. Mommy, can Jack push me on the swing really high? Sarah laughed. If Jack doesn't mind. Would be my honor, kiddo, Jack said, rising from his chair. As he pushed Emma on the tire swing, sending her soaring higher with each push, Emma's laughter ringing out across the yard, Jack felt something settle in his chest. This right here, was why the Brotherhood existed. Not for the motorcycles, or the patches, or the camaraderie, though all of that mattered, but for moments like this. For making sure that a little girl who'd seen the worst of humanity also got to see the best of it, for ensuring that her laughter could ring out without the shadow of injustice darkening it. Higher, Emma called out, fearless now in a way she hadn't been 3 months ago. You got it, Jack called back, pushing harder. Sarah watched from the porch, her hand over her heart, tears streaming down her face, happy tears this time. The sentencing hearing was somber. Judge Brennan listened to impact statements. Sarah's, read by Chen, because Sarah felt she'd said enough at trial. Letters from Emma's teachers about the impact of the trauma on the young girl. Medical professionals detailing the long road of recovery Sarah still faced. Then she listened to pleas for leniency from Marshall, from Tommy's and Kyle's families, from their friends. Finally, Judge Brennan spoke. Mr. Peterson, Mr. Warner, please stand. The 2 young men stood, both pale, both finally seeming to understand the weight of what they'd done. When you fled the scene of the accident you caused, Judge Brennan began, you demonstrated a profound moral failing. You prioritized your own comfort and convenience over the safety and welfare of a woman and child you had injured. Your actions that day were not just illegal, they were fundamentally selfish and cowardly. Tommy's head dropped. Kyle's jaw trembled. The court has heard testimony about your good character, your potential, your youth. But the court has also heard about the pain and suffering you caused to Sarah Mitchell and her daughter Emma. The court has seen the evidence of your deliberate choice to flee rather than help. Judge Brennan paused, her gaze moving between the 2 defendants. Thomas Peterson, on the charge of felony hit and run causing serious bodily injury, I sentence you to 5 years in prison, with 2 years suspended. You will serve 3 years. On the charge of reckless driving, I sentence you to 12 months, to be served concurrently. You will also pay restitution in the amount determined by the victim's documented expenses, and upon release, you will serve 3 years of supervised probation. Charles Peterson made a sound like he'd been punched. Kyle Warner, on the charge of felony hit and run causing serious bodily injury, I sentence you to 4 years in prison, with 2 years suspended. You will serve 2 years. On the charge of reckless driving, I sentence you to 12 months, to be served concurrently. You will also pay restitution and serve 2 years of supervised probation upon release. Judge Brennan looked up from her papers. Gentlemen, you are young. You will survive this experience, and you will have the opportunity to rebuild your lives afterward. Sarah Mitchell will also survive her injuries, but she will carry the scars, physical and emotional, for the rest of her life. Her daughter will remember this trauma. I hope that during your incarceration you reflect deeply on the pain you caused and emerge as better men than you were on that day in May." She gavelled the hearing closed. "Bailiff, please remand the defendants into custody." As Tommy and Kyle were led away in handcuffs, both now crying, their families distraught, Sarah sat in the courtroom gallery with Jack on one side and Rachel on the other. She felt a complex mix of emotions: relief, sadness, satisfaction, grief for the young men's lost potential, anger at what they'd done, gratitude that justice, however imperfect, had been served. 3 years, she said quietly. "It's something." "It's justice," Jack replied firmly. "Not perfect, maybe, but real." Outside the courthouse, the gathered community erupted in cheers when they heard the sentences. The news crews captured it all: the celebration, the relief, the sense that something important had happened here. That evening, the Iron Brotherhood gathered at their clubhouse for what Jack had called a celebration of justice. It wasn't a raucous party, the mood was too complex for that, but rather a gathering of people who'd fought together for something important and won. Sarah and Emma were there, guests of honor. Emma wore a tiny leather vest that Rachel had made for her, decorated with patches including a small iron cross that marked her as an honorary member of the Brotherhood. "Speech!" someone called out when Jack stood up. Jack raised his beer. "3 months ago, we witnessed an act of cowardice. 2 men hurt an innocent woman and her child and ran away, thinking they could escape consequences. But this community said no. This community said that justice matters, that people matter, that we protect our own." Voices rose in agreement. Sarah Mitchell showed incredible courage, both in her recovery and in her willingness to face her attackers in court. Emma Mitchell showed strength beyond her years. And all of you, every single person in this room, and the hundreds more across this region who supported this fight, you proved that community is real, that brotherhood extends beyond blood, and that sometimes the good guys win. The room erupted in applause. Sarah stood, Emma beside her. "I want to say something," she said, and the room quieted. "When I woke up in the hospital 3 months ago, I was terrified. I thought I'd lost everything. I thought I was alone, but I wasn't alone. You were there, all of you. You caught the men who hurt us. You supported us financially. You helped us find a home. You drove me to physical therapy. You made sure Emma got to school. You stood outside the courthouse demanding justice. You changed our lives." Her voice cracked. "I've spent my career as a nurse helping people. I've always believed in the power of caring for others. But I'd never been on the receiving end of that care. Not like this. You've taught me something important, that accepting help isn't weakness. That community isn't just a nice idea, it's survival. That brotherhood isn't just about blood or patches or motorcycles. It's about standing together when it matters most." Emma tugged on her mother's hand. Sarah bent down, and Emma whispered something in her ear. Sarah smiled, tears streaming down her face, and nodded. "Emma wants to say something too," Sarah announced. The little girl stepped forward, no longer the traumatized child from 3 months ago. She looked around the room at the bearded bikers, the leather-clad men and women who'd become her protectors and friends. "Thank you for helping my mommy," Emma said, her voice small but clear. "You're like superheroes, but real." The tough bikers in the room suddenly found themselves blinking back tears. Tiny actually openly wept, not caring who saw. Jack knelt down to Emma's level. "You know what, kiddo? You're the real hero. You were brave when it mattered most. You helped us catch the bad guys by telling the police what you saw. You took care of your mommy while she was healing. You're stronger than you know." Emma hugged him, and Jack felt his heart squeeze in his chest. 6 months later, in the spring, Sarah returned to full-time work at Millbrook Community Hospital. Her back still ached on bad days, and probably always would, but she'd regained her strength and mobility. Dr. Patel welcomed her back with open arms, and the entire staff threw her a party. Emma thrived in first grade, her trauma becoming a more distant memory, replaced by the ongoing love and support of her community. She still played on the tire swing in the backyard of the cottage. Betty Carmichael had insisted they stay as long as they wanted, but now her laughter came easier, her nightmares less frequent. The Iron Brotherhood remained present in their lives, but the intensity of support had naturally eased into normal friendship. Jack and Rachel still stopped by regularly, but not as caretakers, as friends. Sarah had even attended a few Brotherhood events, riding on the back of Rachel's bike, discovering a freedom she'd never known existed. Tommy Peterson and Kyle Warner were 6 months into their sentences. Charles Peterson had tried every legal avenue to get his son's sentence reduced or overturned, but Judge Brennan's ruling held firm. Both young men were housed in a minimum security facility where they worked and attended classes. According to Officer Davidson, who kept tabs on them, both were quiet and compliant. Whether from genuine remorse or just self-preservation was unclear. The hit-and-run case had become a touchstone in discussions about justice, privilege, and community response to crime. Law schools studied it. Victim advocacy groups cited it as an example of successful community support. The Iron Brotherhood's involvement spawned dozens of think pieces about the role of motorcycle clubs in modern society. But for Jack and the Brotherhood, it wasn't about recognition or reputation. It was about knowing they'd made a difference when it mattered most. On a warm April evening, Jack sat on Betty Carmichael's porch with Sarah, watching Emma play in the yard. The oak tree had leafed out, casting dappled shadows across the grass. The tire swing swayed gently in the breeze. "I got a letter yesterday," Sarah said, "from Tommy Peterson." Jack's eyebrows rose. "Oh, his lawyer probably told him to write it, showing remorse for the parole board or whatever, but..." She pulled the letter from her pocket. "I don't know. Parts of it felt genuine." "What did it say?" Sarah unfolded the letter and read aloud. "Dear Mrs. Mitchell, I know that no words can undo what I did or take away the pain I caused you and your daughter. I think about that day constantly. I was scared and selfish, and I made the worst decision of my life. I ran when I should have helped. I prioritized my own fear over your suffering. I am deeply, truly sorry. I understand if you never forgive me. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself, but I want you to know that your courage in facing me in court, your strength in recovering and rebuilding your life, has taught me more about character than anything else I've ever experienced. When I get out of here, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the kind of person who helps instead of runs. I hope Emma is doing well. I hope you both find peace. Sincerely, Tommy Peterson." Sarah refolded the letter. "What do you think? Is it real?" Jack considered. "Maybe. Prison changes people, sometimes for the better. The question is whether the change lasts after they get out." "I don't know if I forgive him," Sarah said quietly. "I'm not sure I ever will. But I hope he means it. I hope he becomes better." "That's generous of you." "Not generous, just tired of anger. I spent so much energy being angry for so long. Now I just want to focus on moving forward, on building a good life for Emma, on being grateful for what we have." Jack nodded, understanding. Forgiveness wasn't about the person who'd caused harm. It was about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying that harm forward. Emma ran up to the porch, holding a dandelion she'd picked. "Mommy, make a wish!" Sarah took the dandelion, its white seeds ready to scatter. She closed her eyes for a moment, then blew. The seeds lifted on the breeze, dancing in the golden evening light. "What did you wish for?" Emma asked. "If I tell you, it won't come true," Sarah said with a smile. But she looked at Jack as she said it, and he understood. She'd wished for exactly what she already had: safety, community, hope. "I have to go make dinner," Sarah said, rising. "Emma, come help me. Can I stay outside a little longer, please? 15 more minutes, then you come inside." "Okay." Emma ran back to her swing. Sarah paused at the door. "Jack, thank you for everything. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. You and the Brotherhood saved us. Not just from those men, but from despair, from giving up. You showed us that people can be good, that community is real, that we don't have to face the world alone. Jack stood, walked over, and gave Sarah a gentle hug. You would have survived without us. You're stronger than you know. Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to find out. After Sarah went inside, Jack stood on the porch watching Emma play. The sound of motorcycle engines rumbled in the distance, Marcus and a few brothers heading out for an evening ride. It was a sound Jack had heard thousands of times, but tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt like a promise being kept, a mission fulfilled. His phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Next week's volunteer schedule is set. We've got Sarah covered for the next 6 months if she needs it. Jack smiled and replied, Perfect. We take care of our own. In the yard, Emma's laughter rang out as she soared higher on the swing, fearless and free. The sun set behind the oak tree, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. And in that moment, in that small Virginia town, justice felt like more than just a verdict or a sentence. It felt like healing. It felt like hope. It felt like home.